The absolute highest and most lethal form of psychological dominance in this modern era does not look like wearing a golden crown or loudly shouting your petty achievements to an uncaring crowd, but it looks like transforming yourself into an absolute, undetectable ghost to the entire world around you. You must understand that collective human behavior is naturally and biologically wired to exploit familiarity and predictive patterns, meaning that the absolute more these people know about your private life and your next tactical move, the easier it becomes for them to project their fears and limit your sovereign power. The exact moment you step into the dark parameters of the Ghost Protocol, you permanently drop all desperate psychological needs for social validation, external applause, or temporary attention, and you start building a massive, unshakable empire completely inside the heavy walls of absolute silence. Let the distracted masses create whatever false narratives or foolish rumors they want about your static absence and your sudden disappearance, while your hidden, relentless daily execution is silently and radically reshaping your entire financial and mental reality. True individual sovereignty and ultimate mental freedom begin at the exact microsecond you choose to become completely unpredictable to the crowd, entirely unseen by your competitors, and absolutely untouchable by the modern social matrix that traps the average mind. The vast majority of human beings on this planet are deeply and instinctively terrified of absolute isolation, because the second you remove external noise, the silent room forces them to confront the incredibly loud and agonizing screams of their own wasted potential and broken dreams. They deliberately surround themselves with superficial relationships, fake friends, and non-stop digital distractions to construct a fragile psychological shield that protects them from facing the cold, painful truth of their own stagnation and mediocrity. But the dark nature of the Ghost Protocol demands that you run directly into this terrifying mental vacuum, voluntarily cutting off every single cheap emotional anchor and parasitic relationship that has kept you comfortably weak for years. This sacred space is not a state of lonely depression or weak isolation. It is a period of strict, military-grade cognitive curation where you selectively and ruthlessly execute your grandest life plans without leaving behind a single witness or a single clue. By systematically stripping away the looking-glass self and killing the desire to impress others, you finally stop performing for a world that isn't actually watching, and you begin the raw engineering of your own absolute dominance in the dark. Your neurobiology has been systematically and beautifully weaponized against you by billionaire corporations, flooding your delicate brain with cheap digital dopamine rewards specifically designed to keep you permanently passive, easily controlled, and perfectly predictable. You constantly struggle to focus and stay disciplined, not because you lack real human ambition or talent, but because your mental baseline and your focus span have been completely fried by a non-stop simulation of useless content. The Ghost Protocol initiates a hard, unyielding neurochemical winter within your mind, forcing a ruthless, total starvation of every shallow pleasure and toxic digital habit that has kept your cognitive performance compromised for far too long. For the first few painful weeks of this absolute psychological isolation, your addicted mind will violently beg you to return to the old noise, which is the exact chemical signal that your damaged dopamine receptors are finally beginning to heal. Once your biological baseline is completely restored to its natural state, deep focus becomes your effortless default setting, giving you a massive, unfair biological advantage over a distracted world that literally cannot focus for 5 consecutive seconds. Every single time you foolishly announce a goal or a project to someone, your brain experiences a fake, premature psychological reward that mimics real achievement and completely drains the survival instinct required to actually complete the hard work. Your grandest visions and highest ambitions must build an intense internal reservoir of psychological pressure, and keeping them a total secret is the only way to convert that raw tension into an explosive, unstoppable fuel for physical execution. Strategic silence is your ultimate, unbreachable defensive shield, completely protecting the delicate, invaluable seed of your potential from the hidden envy, passive-aggressive remarks, and small-minded doubts of the average people who surround you.
Let the mediocre crowd loudly talk about your sudden, mysterious disappearance, and let them foolishly assume that you have failed or broken down, while you are secretly and meticulously mastering the hardest, most complex variables of your chosen craft. When your hidden architectural masterpiece is finally complete and flawless, your results will hit the public market like a devastating, blinding lightning strike, making all verbal explanations and arguments completely useless and unnecessary. The average modern human being treats their limited time as an infinite, worthless playground, carelessly letting precious hours and days dissolve into a toxic fog of passive digital consumption and meaningless, low-value social interactions. But the ghost operating in total monk mode lives exclusively in architectural time, a sacred space where every single block of isolated, uninterrupted work is treated as a solid foundation stone for a multi-generational legacy. By implementing ruthlessly guarded deep focus blocks, you enter a state of flow where the self-critical parts of your prefrontal cortex completely deactivate, entirely destroying all forms of self-doubt, fear, and hesitation. You must accept the fact that you can never reach these extreme cognitive heights if you remain constantly connected, continuously switching contexts, checking messages every 10 minutes, or remaining textually tethered to the modern digital hive mind. The steep, non-negotiable price of exceptional authority and power is temporary, total isolation, a deliberate, calculated choice to completely step away from the pawns on the board, so you can eventually return to dictate the entire game. Every single social connection you maintain in your daily life is a hidden contract that quietly demands your time, your energy, and a piece of your focus, often providing nothing in return but temporary comfort and the hollow feeling of belonging to a crowd. The Ghost Protocol requires you to audit every single relationship in your life with a cold, surgical precision, identifying the parasitic anchors that feed off your potential and ruthlessly cutting them away without any explanation. Isolation acts as a powerful cognitive filter, allowing the toxic noise of external opinions to fade away so that the only voice remaining is the raw, unfiltered frequency of your own ambition and your long-term plans. You must realize that most of the people you consider friends are merely companions of your current circumstances, and once those circumstances change through your growth, their presence becomes a psychological weight that prevents you from reaching higher altitudes. Stop trying to fit into a social cage that was built to keep you predictable. Instead, choose the path of the lone predator who understands that the price of exceptional greatness is a period of absolute solitude from the herd. Strategic silence is not merely a lifestyle choice. It is your ultimate defensive shield, completely protecting the delicate seed of your highest potential from being crushed by the passive-aggressive remarks and hidden envy of average people. When you foolishly announce a goal or a project, your brain experiences a fake psychological reward that mimics real achievement, completely draining the survival instinct required to actually complete the hard work in the dark. By moving in absolute darkness, you are creating a massive vacuum of information that forces others to fill the void with their own curiosity, projection, and growing respect for the silence you have so masterfully maintained. Your hidden daily execution must build an intense internal reservoir of psychological pressure, and keeping your plans a total secret is the only way to convert that raw tension into an explosive fuel for your final execution. When your architectural masterpiece is finally complete and flawless, your results will hit the market like a blinding lightning strike, making all verbal explanations and arguments completely useless and unnecessary to those who doubted you. Your neurobiology has been systematically and beautifully weaponized against you by billionaire corporations, flooding your delicate brain with cheap digital dopamine rewards specifically designed to keep you permanently passive and easily controlled. The Ghost Protocol initiates a hard neurochemical winter within your mind, forcing a ruthless, total starvation of every shallow pleasure and toxic digital habit that has kept your cognitive performance compromised for far too long. For the first few painful weeks of this absolute psychological isolation, your addicted mind will violently beg you to return to the old noise, which is the exact chemical signal that your receptors are finally beginning to heal. Once your biological baseline is completely restored to its natural state, deep focus becomes your effortless default setting, giving you a massive, unfair biological advantage over a distracted world that cannot focus for 5 seconds. By implementing ruthlessly guarded deep focus blocks, you enter a state of flow where the self-critical parts of your brain completely deactivate, entirely destroying all forms of self-doubt, fear, and hesitation. An emotional man is a fundamentally predictable and easily manipulated man because his reactions to the world around him are constantly controlled by external triggers rather than his own internal code of conduct. By entering the shadows of the Ghost Protocol, you are training yourself to become a detached observer of the world, learning to analyze situations with a cold logic that remains completely untouched by temporary emotions. You must build an internal psychological fortress so strong that neither the cheap praise of the crowd nor the harsh criticism of your enemies can penetrate its walls, leaving you in a state of absolute sovereignty. Mastery over your emotions is the ultimate weapon in the dark. It allows you to move through the most chaotic environments with the calm, calculated precision of a ghost who is focused only on the final result. When you stop reacting to the petty provocations of others, you reclaim the energy that was once wasted on useless arguments, channeling all that recovered power into the direct execution of your daily high-level missions. When the 365 days of the Ghost Protocol finally conclude, the version of you that emerges from the shadows will be a complete stranger to the version that first entered them, a man systematically rebuilt for absolute dominance. Your re-emergence should be a strategic reveal of a new, higher-order predator who operates on a level of discipline and focus that the masses cannot begin to comprehend or even attempt to replicate. You will find that the social circles you once craved no longer have any power over you, and the distractions that once controlled your brain have been permanently replaced by the deep hunger for continuous achievement. The world will not recognize the new man you have become, and their shock at your transformation will be the final proof that your period of strategic isolation was the most valuable investment you ever made. The Ghost Protocol has ended, but the mastery remains. You are now free to dictate the rules of the game, moving through the world with the quiet authority of a king whose power was forged in the sacred silence. The mastery of the ghost is not about disappearing from the world, but about discovering your true self in the absolute absence of it. Your 365 days of strategic silence start right now. Will you remain a pawn in their game, or will you become the ghost? The choice is yours. Subscribe to Mind Decoded and let the protocol begin.